Mike Arnold, you've been helping Christians in Nigeria, and you were just telling me that you're pretty new on the scene, and all of this work you've done has really kind of exploded. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, sir. Well, I've been to Nigeria 16 times since 2010 doing mission work. In 2019, discovered it's hard to even describe. It's a horrific concentration camp for displaced Christians in the middle of their capital city of Abuja. And ends up there's countless camps like this all over the country that the government denies they exist. The UN denies they exist. Most horrific conditions. They're told to stay there and given nothing. So there's sewage ditch and there's handmade shanties. It's just horrible. And when I discovered them in 2019, they'd already been there for 5 years. And I promised to tell their story. And I've been back now, counting that trip 7 times since 2019, all over the country. Been to the villages that have been stricken by massacre. I've been to many of these camps, met with so many people, survivors, and also high offices, 2 former presidents, cabinet ministers, senators, governors, kings, even the Catholic cardinal. And a lot of people have been working, to raise awareness of this. It seemed like we were just shouting into the void, nobody paying attention. And about 6 weeks ago, Bill Maher and Ted Cruz started talking about it, and it clicked, and people are now seriously paying attention.
Yeah.
About 2 weeks after that, on October 5th, this little over a month ago, I got a phone call during Sunday morning Bible study from the National Security Advisor of Nigeria, the number 2 most powerful man in the country, and the president's international political consultant, spin doctor, were on the phone. And I don't know.
The president of Nigeria. Right?
Yeah. And Nigeria is the 6th largest nation on earth. It's one of the top 5 oil producing and exporting countries on earth. It's a significant country, but almost 25% of the population of Africa lives in Nigeria. It's huge. And so these 2 top guys call me, and I truly, I kept saying, God befuddled their minds, because my position and my advocacy on raising awareness for the Christian genocide is obvious. But they wanted me to come do a PR stooge tour, a propaganda tour like North Korea or Soviet Union. And I was on the plane a week later, October 12th, and I knew what I was flying into, and I knew that I might die. In fact, a lot of experts told me, don't go, they're going to kill you. And I figured, with the world watching, they'd probably be stupid to do that. But still, I knew there's probably a 25% chance I'd get killed. Updated my will, said farewell to my family, flew over there, went through their stooge tour. I was put in a room with 3 jihad imams from the north who are known to have connections to these terror groups for a photo op, and then did a press conference. And at the press conference, with all the media gathered, they wanted me to deny genocide, and I indicted the nation for genocide. I pulled out a report that I had prepared, distributed it online at the same time. All the reporters got one. I had my own videographers there filming it. I left the press conference, got in a car, went to the airport, and flew home, and had 114 X followers when I got on the plane. My first post got over 2 million hits and 12,000 shares.
Yeah.
It's got more now. In 72 hours, it had over 3 billion total global impressions across all the echoes. And in 72 hours, it flipped the global narrative from 70%, 80% denial, 70% affirmation. It flipped it from 80% denial to 70% affirmation. And everybody says that's what prompted Trump to take action. And just God used me. I happened to be at the right place at the right time, but he used me to flip the global narrative and get Trump involved.
So I want to ask a couple things. When you were on stage refuting the official narrative, first of all, how did you feel? And then what kind of reaction did you see from the officials as you exposed them?
Well, that's a good question. And there's video of it. It's easy to find. I can send you a link. I mean, it's all over my X, and it's been propagated everywhere. But so, like I said, I was prepared to give my life to get the word out, and that gave me a great sense of peace. What can they do to me? So no fear. And then I actually, on multiple points, but before going into the conference room, it was in the same hotel I was in. I just laid face down in my bed, in my hotel room floor, and I said, God, I'm not going, but you can go in this bag of bones if you want to. And it was not me that went in there; it was Christ in me. I do believe that. And
Yeah.
so it was. I was at peace, and it was actually sort of enjoyable. The one thing I do a little bit different, we have schools there. We have about 600 full-time students in these IDP camp schools. And I had some of our staff there. And as soon as I started talking, they handed out the report that I had produced. I should have waited till after I finished talking, because apparently during my talking, somebody had screenshot it, and sent it to the host who was sitting next to me. But you can see it. You can see in the video, he just totally. There's nothing he can do about it at that point. It flipped the narrative globally.
This reminds me a little bit of Gareth Jones. And my wife and I watched this movie, Mr. Jones, and with great interest. He documented mass starvation in Ukraine in the 30s. I think it was 1933. Yeah. And went against the official narrative. And I really want to commend you on your courage. It's outstanding what you did. And I'm finding, Mike, that there are a lot of, you might say, ordinary Americans who are doing extraordinary things. So yeah. You said that the UN was denying that this camp existed. And are you saying the UN trying to hide this?
Oh yeah. And I can send you a link. You can look at my website link. And I recorded in 2023, I guess. So this camp that we stumbled into, and it wasn't really stumbling. The Holy Spirit led us to this camp. We in 2019, we were on a speaking tour. Mm-hmm. I had taken about 5 other Americans with me, and we were traveling around the country speaking at different places. Abuja is their modern capital city. It wasn't even established till the 70s. So everything is shiny, and it's about 3 million people. It's a modern city, really nice airport and roads. This was supposed to be the highlight of our trip. And our host there, my dear brother, Pastor Jed, had organized 21 churches came together for an event that we were supposed to speak at. It was a big outreach event. And it was time for the event. We were in the vehicle, dressed, engine running, ready to go. And Pastor Jed comes out. And I think he's going to get in the car. Instead, he knocks on the window and beckons me outside. And I say, "What's up?" And he said, "I can't take you." I said, "What do you mean you can't take me?" He had organized this, and he's not a man of great means. I mean, he put everything he had into this, and I knew canceling it would be devastating, and it was for him. But he said, "I was in prayer. The Holy Spirit said you're in danger, and I can't take you." And ends up that venue was shot up that afternoon. There were 2 people killed. So the Holy Spirit and Pastor Jed's discernment saved our lives, very likely. But we're sitting there in the car, the engine running, and I said, "What are we going to do?" He said, "Let's go visit an IDP camp." I didn't know what that meant. And that's what the Holy Spirit had told him. He had never been to one. It means, and he explained, internally displaced persons. It's the same legally as a refugee, but they're still in the same boundaries. So we actually stopped and asked directions, and it wasn't far, nice paved road, and then you turn on a dirt track, go about a quarter mile, and there's this hellhole full of people, and mostly kids. And walk in and go in and talk to a woman there, Miss Hannatu, this teacher, amazing story. Well, anyway, I promised to tell their story, and when I got back, I told my friend who's a retired ambassador. This guy was big time. I mean, he was on the board of the World Food Program and such. I said, "We found this IDP camp. These people need help." And he said, "Oh, no, that's impossible." He said, "If it's an IDP camp, if these people are internally displaced persons, then the international community has the money and the mandate to take care of them. There's no way that they're living in those conditions if they're IDPs." And I showed him the pictures and the videos we took, and he went ballistic. He said, "This is not possible." And I found a report from 2015 from the United Nations, UNHCR, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, that documented this exact camp, Nukuchingoro, in Abuja. It documented multiple camps in Abuja. We know of at least 6. And it had pictures, it had location, it had the history of the people that were there, it had listed their needs. This was 2015, UNHCR. So in 2020, we circle back to them and say, "Hey, we're trying to help these people, this camp that you documented." And they replied and said, there's no camp there. Their official reply is, there's no camps there. And the camp's still there. The people are still there. Nothing's changed. But the UN now denies it because their government denies it, which is one of the tragedies, because the money and the mandate is there to take care of these people. All the government has to do is say, hey, they're right here.
Yeah.
But the government won't do that because they're eyewitnesses to the genocide. They're trying to suppress them. And there's millions. There's between 4 and 10 million. There's no census, but they estimate between 4 and 10 million of these people, Christians, living like this. Mostly Christians, about 80% Christian, 20% Muslim. And the government is, and that alone, just the denial of these people, is legally grounds for charges of genocide. And they can be convicted for genocide for what they're doing right now with these displaced people.
And this photo here, this is what you call the Stooge tour.
Yeah, and you can see the guy in the middle that organized it. He had, you can see how happy, and the guy next to him is a northern radical imam. You can see how happy they are.
Their body language says a lot there. So not to ask an obvious question, but why are they persecuting the Christians?
Well, because it's about jihad, first of all. So Nigeria is an odd place. First, to get your mind around it, consider today is 1940, and a journalist just discovered Auschwitz. Okay, that's pretty much what's going on there. This whole regime is rotten to the core and complicit. They put on a face, oh, we haven't violated anything. Well, Hitler never violated the German Constitution either. It's the whole regime was evil. Yeah. Nigeria was never a colony, and Nigeria was never a nation. It was a collection of tribes and territories. The British never colonized it. They incorporated it. They made it an extraction corporation. They weren't there for cultural exchange. They were just there to take. And they divided it into two sections. The North, which was and still is Sharia law. It's for hundreds and hundreds of years has been Sharia law. And the South was very vibrant, very engaged, very entrepreneurial. The South was the ones that went to England and got their education, that spoke English, that adopted the Christian faith in a very real way, that ran the British machinery. But the North does, the British, they do what's called indirect rule. They don't want to deal with the unruly people. They want to deal with one totalitarian ruler that controls everything. And so they allied with the North. And the North was, as we know it today, was founded in the early 1800s by a fellow named Usman Dan Fodio, who established the Sokoto Caliphate. At the time, it was one of, if not the largest pre-colonial empires in Africa, all established through jihad, all established through genocide. And that's what is the basis of this indirect rule that British used in the North, was this jihad caliphate.
Yeah. When
they got their independence in the late 60s, the nation, the southern Nigeria was the fastest growing economic region on earth for 10 years running. But that's where all the oil was that the British wanted. So the British lumped it together as one country, this totalitarian jihad Sharia law North with this Christian free democratic South. And it said, you're now Nigeria. It was designed to fail. It was designed for northern control over the southern resources so they could sell them to the British. That's what it was designed for. The South tried to split off as a independent nation, and the British backed the North in their civil war. They call it the Biafran War, the South being called Biafra. This was during our Vietnam War, so we never heard about it. But the British did a blockade of the South, and it's documented more than 2 million people starved to death, mostly children, because of the British blockade. And the British just said, oh, that'll get them to the table to negotiate faster. The British starved more than 2 million Nigerian, mostly children, to death during the late part of last century, the 60s, 70s. And that's how modern Nigeria was formed, was the subjugation of the Christian South by the totalitarian jihad North with British backing so they could continue to extract minerals. That's the state of Nigeria as you find it today. They have an illusion of elections. They have an illusion of some democracy in the South, but it's a jihad caliphate in the North that's the base of power for the federal government. Their White House, the villa, was built with 2 mosques and no chapel, if that tells you anything.
Wow, not a great start. So do you still see regionally most of the Christians are in one region of Nigeria, or have they mixed quite a bit? Is it sort of like Pakistan and India kind of situation where the Muslims are in the north and the others are in the south?
So there's a middle belt. Okay, so there's a south that's almost entirely Christian, and there's a north that's almost entirely Muslim, and then there's the middle belt where it's mixed, and that's where most of this jihad violence is taking place as they seek to expand the caliphate.
Mm.
And it's now the headquarters for ISIS. Al Qaeda affiliates are there. These international terror groups now operate there, and they are extremely well funded by the blood mineral trade. They are looting the minerals. You'll go to a village that, like I went to Bokos after the Christmas massacre a few months later, and there's already mountains of dirt from the strip mining, and the Chinese are there looting the gold, lithium, tin, and rare earth elements. The government there estimates $9 billion a year, and if that's what the government says, it could be 10 times that, and that's largely funding the jihad activities.
So
and
is
the government's not really they do lip service, but they haven't really. Let me give you an example. When they capture these mass murdering jihadis who are hacking people's heads off with axes, they'll rehabilitate them and then they'll put them in the military.
Well, yeah, it seems like a pretty common practice in African nations. I wanted to back up a little bit, and the British came in and colonized a whole lot of areas, and I was in Sri Lanka for a year as a teacher in 1990 through 91, and even to this day there are people who are fans of the British and others not so much. I'm talking about indigenous peoples, Sri Lankans who, born and raised Sri Lankan. Some would tout the roads that the British built, civilization, stopping the burning of widows on funeral pyres and things like that. Others would talk about things like you did. And I think there's been a lot of talk about colonial exploitation of Africa. Where I'm leading with this is China's now, CCP is involved in countries like this, and certainly in Nigeria, and they have the China's the Belt and Road Initiative. Do you see the CCP investing back into Nigeria? Are they simply taking the minerals out? Are they trying to establish a cultural hegemony there over the United States?
You see, like in Abuja, you'll see various things where it's stamped, provided by the Chinese government, and that's just window dressing. I can tell you from firsthand experience, but also from observation in other parts of the world. I don't know how they treat other Chinese people in China. I don't know that it's any different, but you will not find a more soulless, predatory, parasitic regime than China. They have zero integrity, zero ethics, zero regard for the rule of law in other places. That all they are there for is to extract. And if they have to do a little PR by slapping some stickers on some donated clothing boxes or whatever they are, they'll do that. But they are exceptionally corrupt. They pay money, it's established, to these jihad groups for rent for the land that they're getting these minerals out of.
Yeah,
and they don't care. They just want the minerals. Anything else beyond Chinese is subhuman vermin that are worthy of being killed, bribed, bulldozed to get what they want. That's how Chinese does their foreign policy.
Yeah, I've written quite a bit about Xi Jinping, and actually have done work for the 2 largest anti-CCP organizations in the United States, one of which is the Epoch Times, and I'm pretty well aware of his tricks. He's actually, Xi Jinping got pretty upset at one of the articles that I wrote. That's another story. I just pulled this picture up from the web. Can you tell me who this gentleman is shaking hands with Xi Jinping?
It looks to be Muhammadu Buhari, the former president.
Okay, so this picture might be a little dated.
Yeah, a little bit. I'd say it's probably 3-4 years old at least.
Okay. And so this is leading to a question, though, asking about China, the CCP's involvement there. We've seen recently in the news that Donald Trump has really been calling out the Christian genocide. And I'm wondering, and I don't know what your thoughts might be on this, but Of course, I do believe President Trump cares about the genocide that's happening. But the response from the U.S., should we take a military stance on this, do you think that it could be in response to the violence against Christians, to the persecution, but also with the threat of the CCP in mind? Do you think that there's a military objective there that might heighten our intervention in this country?
Well, so yeah, absolutely. There's a number of factors going on there. Most people don't realize how big and important Nigeria is. Like I said, it's the sixth largest population country on earth. It has between 20 and 25% of the entire population of the continent of Africa. It has upwards of $1 trillion in mineral reserve. It gets about 40 billion a year from petroleum exports. It's one of the top 5 members of OPEC. Its population is very young. And incredible people, the ones that I know, and I've having been there 16 times, and also having visited a lot of the Nigerian communities in the United States. They're amazing, bright, brilliant people. I feel very more at home oftentimes with them than I do in America, because they have the character that made America great, that's so rare here these days. And they are, it's so vital. Here's the thing: so many global nefarious forces have their bloody hands in the cookie jar there, that it's really a one-stop shop if Trump wants to make the earth great again. It is the epicenter for global terrorism now. Michael Langley, general head of AFRICOM, testified before Congress just in May, saying that this region is now the global epicenter for terrorism. The next 911 will come from there. So that's vital. That in the U.S. national interest. Also, without an immediate intervention, Open Doors says that at least 2 million youth will be radicalized within 5 years. These displaced, millions of displaced people, mostly youth, up to 60% of the youth will be radicalized. Imagine 2 million more Boko Haram members with $1 trillion in minerals at their disposal. That is a clear and present danger, not only to the United States, but to the whole world. So that's just the Islamic side of it. That's just the genocide side of it. You have the Chinese. Again, they have their bloody hand in that cookie jar, and they don't want that exposed. You have the globalists. Obama triggered all this in 2014, trying to get the Christian president elected. Buhari, the guy in that picture, was mediator for Boko Haram when they negotiated with the government. He had called for global Sharia law. He had called for Nigerian Sharia law at any cost. And Obama plucked him out of obscurity. David Axelrod was his campaign advisor. And Obama pulled military support from their fight against Boko Haram. At the time, it was the only nation on earth where radical Islam was being pushed back. He hamstrung them. And when they tried to go to the nations, he blocked that too.
Yeah.
And so, the globalists, Obama is exposed there. China's exposed there. The radical Muslims are exposed there. And the British are exposed there because they set this all up on purpose. It's to keep it
absolutely.
So, there's a lot of compelling reasons for Trump to go there beyond just the fact that Christians are being massacred. That's enough. That's enough, but there's a lot of reasons for him to go.
Well, it's very interesting. I often refer to this book, Unrestricted Warfare, which was written by 2 Chinese colonels. It's the PLA's handbook for warfare. And people ask, why are certain things happening? Why do we have open borders? Why is Islam now suddenly allied with the left, or suddenly, so it seems to people? But in this book, you can find all of this in the game plan. You can see how the CCP is manipulating global politics. They have a very intricate plan, and they've studied us quite a lot. So it's really no surprise to me, Mike, that you see Chinese communism and radical Islam working together, and in the U.S. as well. We see that there's the U.S. left is in bed with an ideology that you would think on the surface would be antithetical to what they believe, because what would happen in a heavy Muslim area of Nigeria if someone came out as openly gay or transgender or something like that? It's a strange juxtaposition. But what I'm suggesting is that all of this is being orchestrated by huge, massive global power brokers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. And really, there's a lot of incentives for these global power brokers, but the $1 trillion in minerals really appears to be the plum. You know,
Yeah.
the Chinese and a lot of these players use the radical Muslims as useful idiots to go and do all their dirty work, thinking that when it's all over, they'll just put them back in their. I don't know what they think they're going to do when it's all said and done. It's pretty short-sighted, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a horrible situation, and it. Again, I go back to we really need to get our brains around it as if this is 1940 and we've just discovered Auschwitz. You don't do that. You don't fix that like Neville Chamberlain style. You know, you don't say please. You don't offer to help them stop the terror because they're behind it. It's literally the political base of the president of Nigeria is the North, and the North is founded on jihad. He can't speak against it. He can't fight it because he'd be fighting his own political supporters that got him in office and that fund him and that support him.
Well, what you just said there reminds me a lot of one of my favorite quotes by Yuri Bezmenov, the ex-Soviet dissident who warned the U.S. about Soviet communism. He said, "The useful idiots, the leftists who are idealistically believing in the beauty of the Soviet socialist or communist or whatever system, when they get disillusioned, they become the worst enemies." That's why my KGB instructor specifically made the point, never bother with leftists. Forget about these political prostitutes. Aim higher. And now here's what's very interesting. They serve a purpose only at the stage of destabilization of a nation. For example, your leftists in the United States, all these professors and all these beautiful civil rights defenders, they are instrumental in the process of subversion only to destabilize a nation. When their job is completed, they're not needed anymore. They know too much. Some of them, when they get disillusioned, when they see that Marxist-Leninists have come to power, obviously they get offended. They think that they will come to power. That will never happen, of course. They will be lined up against the wall and shot. So I would assume here, Mike, that the Chinese Communist Party is presenting themselves as the savior of Nigeria, the protector of the Muslims. You know, they're portraying this as if evil American Donald Trump are picking on this poor nation of Nigeria, making up this whole genocide idea.
Yeah, but they don't have their fingerprints on the rhetoric. You see, there's a major narrative war taking place here now, and you know, Trump support it can be a double-edged sword in this country because you know if he went out today and said, "Oh, look at the beautiful blue sky," you'd have all these leftists saying, "No, it's green. No, it's not blue. It's all a fraud." And with him saying we have to intervene and stop this genocide of Christians, you have all these stooges and stool pigeons and bots and you know, paid off influencers out there denying it. What really shocked me, and I have to say it was like ripping my guts out to see Tucker Carlson. I've been a fan of his since the bow tie days. And he platformed the other day this fella who he said is a you know human rights attorney. Well, that's like calling the O.J. Simpson defense team, you know, family violence attorneys. This guy represents dictators to help them get out of charges of human rights violations. He represented Mugabe. He's represented recently Maduro, and he represented a governor in Nigeria who was a federal minister at the time. When Amnesty International went after him for human rights violations, his nickname today is the Butcher of Kaduna. This guy that Tucker Carlson had on represented the Butcher of Kaduna in Nigeria. And, oh, there's no genocide. And Tucker Carlson said, oh, of course, it's just a ploy to distract attention from Ukraine. I don't know who paid him for his soul, but he certainly sold it. I mean, that's how you see China play and these other forces. Yes, how you see the Emirates, you know, the big backers of Islam, they pay off folks like that, or they threaten them. I don't know how they got to them, but for someone like that to scoff at the idea that there's even a genocide, it's just God, it just crushed me to see that.
Well, there's something strange going on with Tucker Carlson and others, and I know people are trying to get to the bottom of it. I don't have time to look into everything. That I think this is one trail I will go down and apply some good research, not conspiracy level conjecture. I have seen discussions that perhaps there's a tie between Qatar or Qatar-linked entities and Tucker Carlson. It's something I've heard a lot about, but it's also something I want to look into and see if there's any veracity to that.
like you, I was in the same position. Again, I've been a fan of his since the bow tie days. I mean, a long, long, long time. And when he was at Fox, he was, for a long time there, seemed to be the only voice out there really talking sense. And my God, knowing what I know and being where I've been and seeing what I've seen, this is a very real genocide. And for him to sit up there and pontificate, not, oh, we need to look into it, or there's some people. Oh no, that's just a ploy to distract Ukraine.
Yeah.
That's a betrayal of everything righteous and holy and truthful. That is soulless.
And I think there's a distinction here because people, I've followed Tucker for a long time as well, and he's done a lot of good work. However, the criticism, and I just watched something again by Victor Davis Hanson today. I think that not to go too far off topic here, but I think the problem is that people sense that Tucker Carlson is giving softball interviews to some very radical people with ideas that we've seen before, ideas that have been very destructive and actually led to genocides, led to mass murder and democide. And they want to see Tucker's sharp debating skills and asking those penetrating questions, and he's not.
No.
And so we want to know why. Why isn't Tucker all over this genocide issue? Why is Tucker talking so much about hating Christian nationalists and so on? And it seems that he's only empowering some of the, we don't want censorship. It's not about censorship, but who do you put up on a pedestal? Yeah. And are you asking them the hard questions, or are you just giving them an audience? And that's something that I think Tucker needs to answer for. And unfortunately, people kind of move the goalposts there and say, well, oh no, you just want to censor somebody. Why can't he interview somebody? I think you should be able to interview anybody, but are you going to ask them the hard questions? Are you just going to give them a platform?
Yeah, and in the case of this so-called human rights attorney expert, he didn't even do it that way. So here's somebody with an opposing viewpoint. He introduced this guy as this unassailable, righteous, holy expert on human rights. Then there was no questions. There was no probing his background. But you look it up again. Robert Mugabe, I'm sure you've heard the name, one of the most despicable, brutal, dictators in African history, maybe in world history. This guy represented Mugabe to help get sanctions relieved. This guy recently, in the past few years, represented Maduro to help him get the U.S. attention off of him. And he represented, this was a few years ago, but he represented a guy that went on to be known as the Butcher of Kaduna, Nasir El-Rufai, a governor who oversaw the jailing of pastors and the blasphemy killings of people and the massacre of thousands and thousands of Christians in his state, while paying money to the perpetrators like we used to pay farmers to not grow milk. He was paying, let me give you money so you don't go kill people again. And that's who this guy, Robert Amsterdam, represented, who Tucker then not only platformed, but introduced as an expert in human rights.
Yeah.
It's a little different than giving Nick Fuentes a platform. It'd be like introducing Nick Fuentes as a great righteous philosopher, a hero of the faith. That's the same thing. That guy right there is a dictator defense attorney.
I'll have to watch that interview. You did watch the interview in its entirety? Yeah.
Oh, they get to Nigeria mainly towards the end, and it's chilling. We hear Carlson say, "Of course, everybody knows this is just a ploy to distract attention from the real persecution taking place in the Ukraine."
All I can say is
the Holocaust denial. I mean, that's the same as a Holocaust denier. That's what it is.
Money is a root of all kinds of evil, right? Like the scripture says. And we want to think that people like Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens or others are going to stand up on principle. But you always have to ask the question, has somebody been compromised through money, through intimidation? And that's why I think it's very, very important. And I don't want to throw out accusations without researching, but I think we always have to ask the question, no matter how big a person's name is, have they been compromised? And we need to be very, very careful not to get caught up in the cult of personality and hold everyone accountable.
Yeah. And, first of all, I endeavor to only stay in my lane of expertise. And if I don't know something for sure, I will always qualify it.
Yeah.
And anybody that purports to be an expert or have a platform or be a journalist or an investigator that makes a definitive, absolute statement of fact is accountable to that. He didn't say, there's evidence of a genocide, but I'm inclined to believe this. He just, he made it as a statement of absolute fact, and you're an idiot if you believe otherwise, is how he presented it. And that's either he's lost his integrity and his rudder 100%, or he's lost his soul. There is no other way to explain that. Somebody of that level of, earned credibility and that level of platform doesn't have a right to get out there and say something like that as a blanket fact without being so wrong about it, even if it was an innocent mistake.
Well, and that's very telling to me when there's no room for, because we're talking about at this point, well, I think that the Nigerian genocide goes beyond a hypothesis. It's at the level of theory right now. Theory in scientific terms being something, not that's a wild guess, but that's something that's well supported by evidence. Okay, it's well documented, well supported by evidence. But it raises a red flag for me when someone is that dogmatic. Oh no, it's not happening. It's not happening. Well, how do you know? Maybe there's some things you missed out on. So, and honestly, Mike, one of the problems we have in this country is that critical thinking is rare. Our young people certainly aren't taught critical thinking, and that's something we need to get back to. I'm going to take a quick break here. Along those lines, I want to play a little bit about Freedom Talk Magazine, because critical thinking and being aware of what's happening in the world is so very important.
America's founders warned that without knowledge and virtue, no nation can remain free. Yet through the steady infiltration of Marxist ideology, we have been stripped of both, and we are no longer a moral and educated people. To save America, we must spark nothing less than a national renaissance. That's why you need Freedom Talk Magazine, the journal of truth and virtue. We cultivate enlightened thinking and principled living, offering unique insights into the issues and remarkable people defining our world. More than headlines, we craft the very ideas that drive them, engaging minds, sparking brave dialogue, and influencing current events. Freedom Talk shapes tomorrow's news at the headwaters of culture with an unflinching commitment to free speech and America's founding principles. And with new collaborations, like our partnership with Mike Lindell and others, we're now positioned in front of millions of freedom-loving people across TV, streaming, and grassroots networks. Sign up today for your free subscription to Freedom Talk Magazine and join the new American Renaissance.
So I do plan to do an article about this in Freedom Talk Magazine, and perhaps a full issue. Each month is themed. So for November, for example, the theme is Christianity and communism, which I think is something you'd be very interested in. In fact, I might be able to get an article on this in that issue, because we're working on getting each month sent out at the beginning of the month, but with waiting for content and such, we're more toward the end of the month. But communism and the Christian church is the theme of that. But I would like to do an issue that encompasses what you're talking about, and how to approach it. I'm not sure, like post-colonial implications of colonialism, and what's true and what's not would be a great one. But the persecution of Christians, or religious persecution, would certainly be a good one to do. So by the way, if you're watching this, just go to realfreedomtalk.com and you can sign up free for Freedom Talk Magazine. You should get a pop-up. If not, go to the Freedom Talk Magazine page. It's absolutely free. Mike, tell us where we can find you. Here's your website, mikearnold.org.
That's the best place because it'll link to my other sites. I have my ministry, Africa Arise. We run schools now in 2 different IDP camps, internally displaced person camps, for these displaced people in Abuja. We have a 3rd school under construction. Largely thanks to Laura Luma. I was on her show the other day, and she made a $10,000 donation. So that's going immediately to finish construction of a school for another 500 kids. That's Africa Rise, but you can find that right on the top of my website, mikearnold.org.
Yeah. Great. So please, if you're watching, donate. And then you have an X page. Actually, I clicked on your website on the X logo there, and it said page.
There you go. That's it. Yeah,
So you're at Mike Arnold Truth,
yes.
and I encourage people to follow you there. Can
I
you
had,
just
I had 113 followers 1 month ago, and it jumped by 22,000 overnight.
and I see Laura Loomer there is one of your followers, so that's great.
Yeah, she's awesome. I really, I didn't know her at all, just through posts and all, but I found her. I was on her show, probably I think it was about an hour live, and just so engaging and warm. And then I don't think that she's ever done this before, but to make a pledge like that, and I mean that's huge. I was really touched.
That's nice. I haven't met her, not that I can remember, but I would love to make that connection. And I know we have some mutual friends and some concerns in common. But Mike, tell us how we can donate again, and what this money would be put toward.
Absolutely. So, like I said, the Africa Arise is a nonprofit entity. We have an entity in the United States, Africa Rise USA, and then we have a sister entity in Abuja in Nigeria, Africa Rise International. And all our funds we raise here go over there, and they go to the front line. We have schools. So that what I mentioned earlier about 2 million youth due to be radicalized by 2030. We are doing everything we can to rescue Nigerian children from this cycle of death. And so we provide free, high quality education to these displaced children. And the testimonies are, they'll grab you, but they're also universal. They showed up wanting to get guns and go back and kill. Now they're getting an education. They want to go back and rebuild.
Fantastic.
And if the stats hold true, out of those 600 kids, that means just with that, we're saving about 350, 360 future jihadis from a life of hate and killing.
Wow.
And it's very efficient for our current level of 600 kids. It's about $36,000, $40,000 a year to support 600 kids with full-time education.
Wow.
So every bit goes a long way, and it makes a direct difference in rescuing children from the cycle of death.
Yeah, well, I'd like to talk to you more. You might know that Sam Sorbo and I, Kevin Sorbo's wife, and I started Parents Demanding Justice Alliance, and Sam is very involved in education. She's a contributor to Freedom Talk magazine, and she's big into homeschool, developing homeschool resources. If you haven't met Sam yet, I'd love to introduce you.
That'd be awesome.
I also taught overseas, and I took ESL courses and have worked in education. I have a book for young men, so I'd definitely like to explore how we can help out as well. And I actually I've been talking with and working with one of the main largest homeschool curriculum providers in the country, and he has a great facility in Missouri. I'm getting ready to go there for the second time and meet there with David Summerall from Stop Hate. So I think there's a lot of connections that can be made, and beyond financial donations, which obviously you need, there may be some ways that we can help one another out and make some good connections. So
I appreciate that. Yeah, we homeschooled. My wife and I homeschool our 4 kids.
nice.
So the other thing, those 7 trips starting in 2019 on the front lines, on a couple of trips, it was level 4, do not travel, red flag warning by the State Department as combat zone. There's not a higher level of don't travel, and we'd go anyway. That was all with documentary cameras, oftentimes undercover and hidden cameras. And I've stand ready to produce a very, very high quality moving documentary, and it's not focusing on the darkness. The darkness is obvious. It's focusing on the light, the heroes and on the front lines that are rescuing children and making a difference.
I love it.
And I've put everything I have into it, everything, and I need to get it across the finish line. We could have it out in 60 days, and I'm telling you, just the stories I recount verbally move people to see this, a full-length documentary. And we're aiming for a Sundance or a Cannes Film Festival level. We've got that pedigree involved. I just need to raise the finish funding for that. We can have it out in 60 days.
Awesome. Well, we'll do our part in this, and I know you're talking to David and Stop Hate, and I'm helping them. We're collaborating on a number of things. So I look forward to talking to you more, Mike, and thank you so much for what you're doing. As I do, Matthew 25, when Christ returns, he's going to separate the sheep from the goats based on whether or not we are taking care of Christ's little ones. And we can start youth programs, we can give great sermons, we can write wonderful articles, but if we're not reaching out and helping people doing what Jesus would be doing if he were physically on this earth, if we're not representing him in that way, we're going to have to answer for that. So, it may sound kind of odd, but I feel immense gratitude for what you're doing, as if you're doing it for me and for all other Christians. It feels oddly like a personal favor, but I think that's the spirit of Christ that recognizes that in so much as you've done it to the least of these,
A body, one of the connotations of being a body is that, when this finger gets cut, this hand comes to bandage it. We should feel these things. If we're part of the body, it should be personal, because it is.
Yeah.
And if you see, Christians, so-called Christians, and there's the prosperity gospel, the poison of that is really strong over there. And you see church leaders that have a huge, golden roofed, temple they built to themselves right near these camps, and they do nothing, and they hoard the tithes and offerings so they can buy more jets. That's not, if they don't feel what's happening in the body right next door, then I question whether they're part of the body themselves.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's all too common. And Sam and I and the others in the Parents Demanding Justice Alliance have seen people who have the opportunity to help and the power and the influence to help, but really aren't willing to lift a finger. And that needs to change, because if you're going to call yourself a Christian, you ought to act like one, right? Well, Mike, thank you so much. I know we were just going to talk, and I'm going to do some writing and different things to help support your work, but I think we'll make a show of this if you're okay with it. That's why I was feathering in some photos and different things like that. But
I'm glad I threw out a different shirt at the last minute. I was just had to put on a ball cap. So
at any given time, I could be wearing pajama pants. You never know.
Oh yeah, you gotta love it.
All right, Mike, we'll keep in touch, and I'll come back off camera too, and we'll work on getting some information out, media releases and such, any way that we can help. So
thank you so much.
God bless you for your work. We'll talk soon.
Bye-bye.